Well, hi, and welcome back to the channel. John Hart here. Today I'm giving you 3 Mr. Olympias who absolutely flipped our training on its head. They changed everything with regards to how we work out and moved the culture of bodybuilding. Okay, that's the best way of putting it. So I'm also going to give you some bonus material with regards to the naturals, the natural bodybuilders out there, okay? So stay tuned for that in the middle of this video. Here we go. Get into it really quick. Number 1, first and foremost, coming out of the silver era. The silver era was Steve Reeves, John Grimmick, all the guys leading up into the 60s, okay? The 40s, 50s, 60s. We'll call it late 40s into the 50s and the 60s. Silver era bodybuilders. These guys, they trained 3 times a week per average, full body workouts, and you know, they were considered the wholesome, clean crew with regards to drugs. They were, are supposedly all natural and did things right and were wholesome and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to put a video down below that you can go ahead and see why that just wasn't plain true, okay? And I know some of you have taken that as being pure sacrilege to your bodybuilding beliefs, but it'll be down below, okay? So you can go ahead and watch that video after you're done with this one. Why those guys, weren't as pure as we all thought, okay? There we go. Anyway, silver era bodybuilders, as they shifted into the golden era we would, consider to be when we started to have real Mr. Olympias. That would be Larry Scott, Sergio Oliva, and then eventually Arnold Schwarzenegger. The most influential on our training at that point, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold came in and blew the scene apart. Those full body workouts done 3 times a week were just tossed out the window. Arnold was all about bombing and blitzing body parts at least 2 times a week in the off season, if not 3 times a week pre-contest. And he was training on a 6-day split. Let's just give it an average and say it was the 6-day split where you would train the full body over 3 days. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, it would be chest and back, shoulders, arms, then legs. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then repeat it Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Chest and back, shoulders, arms, legs. Calves were done every day. Abs every day, as if they weren't even a muscle. I mean, the reasoning, the rationale behind that was a little silly to me. They're tough muscles, therefore they should be trained every day. You walk on your calves every day, so therefore you should train your calves every day. That rationale didn't ever make sense to me. But anyways, Arnold changed the culture because of his popularity, because he was the man, because of his personality, because of his exposure in the magazines. He brought bodybuilding into mainstream. He was on talk shows. He was loved by everybody. He had that it factor that the media loved. He would go on a talk show, and the talk show hosts loved him. He couldn't be outsmarted. They tried to outsmart him. They tried to make him look like he was dumb at times. And he would just outword them. He was quicker than them. He had a quick wit about him. So all of that combined, and the magazines now being distributed from Joe Weider with a much greater distribution, Muscle Builder magazine in particular, was no longer just Iron Man magazine, but now Muscle Builder was out there, which became Muscle and Fitness. Joe Weider's magazines in distribution all around the world. That magazine promoting Arnold Schwarzenegger and the training that he did, and also calling him the Weider principles that Arnold would use within those workouts, were promoted as it. And that lasted. That went all the way through the 70s, into the 80s. And what changed? I'm going to throw a name out at you that most of you won't even recognize. And it's kind of embarrassing that you wouldn't, because if I asked you who's the greatest bodybuilder of all time, just based on Mr. Olympia wins, who are you going to say? I know, you're going to say Ronnie Coleman. No. You're forgetting one other one who was also an 8-time Mr. Olympia, just like Ronnie Coleman, but did it first. And did it during an era where it was just as competitive as Ronnie's. And that would be Lee Haney. So Lee Haney, all the way from 1984 through 1991, was Mr. Olympia 8 years in a row. He dominated. This is why I would make the case that Lee Haney was the best. Okay, it's known that Mr. Olympias, when they first win their Mr. Olympia, it's usually their 2nd or 3rd Mr. Olympia that they win when they do them in a row. Their 2nd or 3rd one, they usually hit their best look of all time. And that's been consistent all these years, okay? Some of them it happens on the first one. You know, some people argue Ronnie Coleman's first Olympia was his best look. But Lee Haney's, for sure, blew the average, blew the norm out of the water, okay? Arnold's right around his third Mr. Olympia, his fourth one. That 1973, 1974 Arnold was amazing. Lee Haney, his 1991, his eighth Mr. Olympia look, would have blown away all of his prior looks and blew away the competition for sure. And an uprising Mr. Olympia, and the next one who was coming up was Dorian Yates. He was second place to Lee Haney in that Olympia, and still Dorian took him down. Lee Haney took him down. So Lee Haney consistently progressed. Now the workout that Lee Haney did was 3 on, 1 off. He likes to say 1 off and 3 on. So the rest of the bodybuilding world calls it 3 on, 1 off. So I'll just go with that for now. The 3 on, 1 off. So while the silver era guys were averaging training body parts 3 times a week with a fairly low volume, Arnold came in, raised the volume way up, and then his workouts involved training body parts on average 2 times a week. Lee Haney comes in, and he's the next legacy champion. So Arnold won it 7 times, Lee Haney won it 8 times. So that 7-year period and 8-year period, they were untouchable. Lee Haney came in, and during that 8 years, he trained 3 on, 1 off, and he went to a whole other level where the mass is concerned. He grew more mass than everybody else. So he got more rest. He believed in having a little more rest than Arnold. He still averaged 1.75 times per week training each body part. See the math? 1.75. So the number's dwindling now. Who was the next most influential one? Man, you're not gonna, you won't name it. I will. Dorian Yates, immediately after Lee Haney. Now, why am I saying that? Why was he so influential? Well, Lee Haney was training body parts 1.7 times per week on a 3 on, 1 off routine. You would think Dorian would come on in and follow that approach. You know, Lee Haney was the biggest guy around during Dorian's era of starting to work out, but no, he ignored that. He went with what made sense. What made sense was what Mike Menser, a former Mr. Universe, Mr. America, had talked about. So to Dorian, that made more sense. So he altered his training down, and he used a high-intensity approach, but he would only train on a 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 or 2 off pattern. And those 4 workouts in the course of a week, that would be 4 different workouts. His full body would be split over those 4 workouts. So this is how he trained the majority of his career. That's what I'm talking about. How Lee Haney trained the majority of his career, how Arnold trained the majority of his career, how Dorian trained the majority of his career, and how they trained when they were being publicized the most. That's the word, publicized the most. So Dorian, as he was becoming Mr. Olympia, the workout routine that was being advertised as his high-intensity approach was one wherein he trained his shoulders, his traps, his triceps on one workout. The next day he'd come in and he'd train his back, just his back. Then he'd take a day off. Then he'd come back in and he would train his chest and his biceps. And the very next day he would train his legs. At that point, he'd take 1 more day off, maybe even 2 if he was that burnt, but let's just say 1 day off. So it still took Dorian 6 days to train his full body. That was now a frequency of 1 time. What? No, it's not, because there's a 7th day involved too. 1.25 times per week. So look at the progression. We have going from Arnold to Lee Haney to Dorian, 3 legacy Mr. Olympias, 3 who went on a streak. Arnold 7 times. Lee Haney 8 times. Dorian 6 times. Dorian, the lowest frequency of training body parts and volume. So Arnold 2 times a week on average. Lee Haney 1.7 times per week per average. Dorian 1.25 times per week on average. Each one of them, because they were unique, because each one of them had publicity, The publicity machine was promoting them wildly. And then eventually, well, let's just say that was the case with Arnold. With Lee Haney, he dominated so much during that 8-year run that it was undeniable that his training worked. And the majority of bodybuilders followed his approach. That's the majority of all pro and amateur and natural bodybuilders. The naturals, I'm getting to them right now, the naturals followed pretty much what Arnold did back in the 70s, and then eventually what Lee Haney did throughout the 80s, and then eventually what Dorian did. Most bodybuilders, especially my UK friends, okay? And that makes sense, right? Dorian's from Birmingham, and, the whole UK tribe, all, it's understandable, national pride and all that. That's their hero, Dorian, and rightfully so, okay? One of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. And he trained uniquely different from all of his peers. He would only work out 4 times every 6 days, sometimes every 7 days. And he was training a low volume approach, 1 working set per body part. And he was training body parts 1.25 times per every 7 days. The lowest volume of any is now happening right now. Current day, current age. The naturals at this point in time. Several world champions as well as top level natural champions currently training high intensity style. See, they're thinkers. That's the one thing, the one credit I give to Lee Haney, Dorian Yates coming out of the Arnold era. Both of them shifted their training. They thought about it. They reasoned what would be best for them. Not, I'm going to do it because my predecessor did it. So they adjusted. And today's naturals, several world champions as well as several top level, world-class level naturals are training in more of a high intensity fashion, training just 3 times per week. Now we've had several over the last few decades. My buddy Ian Duckett, world champion, Mr. Britain, again, another UK guy. There you go. Russell Clark, Russell Clark, amazing. He's now in his 60s, still training and competing and winning at that level. He's won over 40 Mr. Britain, over 50, over 60 Mr. Britain. It's wild. There's several of them that are friends with them that have trained high intensity style. But now, currently, as we go through this, top level WNBF, national and world champions are coming out in interviews, and their training is, in fact, coming down to more of a high intensity style, training body parts just once a week, really. And that's what I did too. So competing as a natural, you have to adjust things down. The frequency and the intensity really high, but frequency has to go down, and the volume of those workouts has to go down. You just can't tolerate it without the steroid, without the bodybuilding drugs. It doesn't work that way. So the fallacy out in bodybuilding land and in internet land, the internet myth regarding naturals is that we somehow and for some reason should be training our body parts more often to stimulate protein synthesis. This is stupid. Because the assumption is there's no protein synthesis if you're not trained. That's stupid. That's just plain stupid. You die without protein synthesis happening. There's the answer to that one, okay? Stupid reasoning. Whoever did this one and brought this one out and has been repeating this one ad nauseum all throughout the internet is just incorrect. Training body parts more often as a natural just wears you down. It interrupts you train, you recover, you adapt process. It interrupts that process by training over and over again before you have adapted, before you have reaped the benefit of the hard work that you did in the gym. So current day bodybuilders that are natural have taken more of a Dorian approach and reduced it slightly to where in the course of a week they're getting in 3 workouts for their entire, that's 3, their entire body split over 3 workouts. So it's a split routine. guys like my friends Ian Duckett and Russell Clark that I just named, they make the point and have thrived on full body, or they call it all body routines, done 2 to 3 times per week. And when I ask them, because I'm thankful that they're my friends because I could ask them questions like this, why did that not work for me? I just got burnt out. And both of them kind of laughed, and they asked me about my height, my weight, and at the time when I answered their questions, I am 5'10" and a half, 200 pounds. And when I'm in shape, contest shape, on stage, that type, 194 pounds. I'm still in the 190s. These guys are in the 150s and the 160s. So lighter weight. When you have more tissue, even guys that are bigger than me, that are natural, they need to be able to recover and adapt from their workouts. You can generate more intensity, or I should say you can cause more damage with your workouts when you have more tissue. And you have to recover and adapt. So thinking about it, right? So these guys were right. I finally had an answer. So I no longer bang my head against the wall, forcing myself to try or do all body routines 3 times a week. I have had and continue to use a small cycle each year where I train that way, but get it in twice a week. And it's fun, keeps the entertainment levels high, and my body thrives on that as well. So my whole point in all of this is pointing out that the naturals have adapted. Thank God. Thank God. A lot of high-level naturals who are getting publicity right now have adapted and are training less often, very intense, with low volume. I love it. So that's it for today. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you'll consider adapting your own, changing your own workout according to your own status. If you're natural, great. You have to adapt your training down over time. Not to the point where you're training once every 3 weeks. That's just plain dumb too. But the vast majority of you who are natural and not on TRT, hormone replacement therapy, testosterone replacement therapy, like myself, if you're natural and running on your own juice, then you have to adapt according to how you're recovering and adapting. You have to change your workouts. Scale it down a little bit here and there. That's it for today, okay? From my heart to you, John Hart. Listen, before you go, will you hit the subscribe button to my channel? It's popping up next to my head right now. Hit that subscribe button, please. Give me a little bit of love on the channel. Down below and off to your left, you're going to see a thumbs up button over there. Show your brother a lot of love by tapping that thing and changing its color. The YouTube algorithm loves it. I love it too. I'll see you in the next video.